My dog Kingston and I moved to San Francisco's Mission District in June 2013 from Minneapolis to be with my girlfriend. I love Minneapolis. I really love my girlfriend. San Francisco's Mission District is the neighborhood I moved to, and it's Nomi's loving embrace that I call home. I've been thinking a lot about what home means, that word. I've always been someone involved in my neighborhood, in my community. I've also moved a lot. I'm not very good at moving, and I also have a track record that would maybe tell a different story. From childhood, eviction is part of that story. My longest address was as an adult and in a supportive housing program. Moving anywhere is a transition, something I'm not good at, but once the physical move is out of the way, I'm pretty adaptable. I had connections to San Francisco, like many cities. I'd shown movies here, guest curated for the film festival. I'm disabled, so there are resources that need to be found every time I move. Support gets lost, so it's easy and it's difficult. Almost every t-shirt I own says Minneapolis or 612 on it. I have the state of Minnesota tattooed on my arm. Answering how I like Minneapolis is easy. Answering about San Francisco is very complex. I've been intentional about making the city my home. I've been seeking out ways to get involved in my neighborhood, making new friends, finding work, finding resources to create art, to exercise activism, to connect, to create community. Upon coming here, the first thing I loved was the public art. The murals and the postal stickers, tags on walls and surfaces of my neighborhood. On dog walks, I take tons of pictures. So many cool sidewalk stencils. I loved the sun every day and learned about microclimates firsthand. I found a free farm stand a few blocks from my apartment where year-round, free locally grown organic produce is shared. Those urban farmers also share seedlings, resources, and tips on growing food. For the first time in my life, I started growing food in repurposed buckets. I share seedlings and food with others. I'm surrounded by amazing public art and dozens of buckets that make up a beautiful garden. One of the greatest gifts of the gardening is the opportunity to interact with hummingbirds in our small shared backyard. These two things that I loved first about the city came with a grain of salt. I learned quick that the activists and artists that created such a vibrant public art culture have been and are being forced out of the neighborhoods that they helped make beautiful. My neighborhood, the Mission District. I also learned that there is a serious drought in California. Those hummingbird friends that look me right in the eye when I'm gardening, they're thirsty. I've been looking at the ways I'm privileged, been being grateful, and I've been practicing a lot of self-care. I've been rejoicing every time it rains, which is rare. The first year I was here, it literally only rained 5 times. And I wouldn't even count 2 of those as rain, more like a 2-hour mist. It's scary. The swimming spot we found for Kingston dried up. Much of the fresh food that is distributed across the U.S. comes from California. This affects us all. It is so overwhelming. The love of my relationship with Nomi, having my dog Kingston turn 12, and cute medicine helped me with the completely whelmed overs. I found side gigs caring for other people's dogs. Thank goodness for those dog walks, which bring me to more murals and more public art. The public art got me researching the artists and looking into the politics of what the stencils meant. I was learning hard and quick about what my eyes could already see, the gentrification and class warfare. I mean, I see it here in San Francisco like no other place I've been. So much visible homelessness, extreme poverty. And it's my neighbors without addresses that I see regularly on dog walks that are the friendliest, sleeping on the steps of a $50 plate restaurant. I'm fortunate. It's a privilege to move into a beautiful Victorian on Folsom Street where the rent and bills are less than I've paid recently in Minneapolis. I have my own room. Nomi and I have rooms connected by a big French door that we haven't opened yet. The house has 2 separate units. In our unit, Kingston, Nomi, and I have a cat named Pearl Buttons. And down the hall we have 3 roommates. One of them is also a cat. We all share a beautiful backyard with our upstairs neighbors and many hummingbirds. Our landlord, Frank, lives down the street and uses 2 canes. Frank's grandfather was the first owner of the house. His grandmother died in the house. Parking is hard work in our neighborhood. Nomi has a physical disability, and there are very few crip spots close by with high competition for them. On the weekends, lots of people flock to our neighborhood. Rich people, drunk rich people, making parking even more difficult. flooding the sidewalks with entitlement. Nomi tells me it didn't used to be like this. Not when she moved to the neighborhood just 6 years ago. These are the kind of the people who don't say hello. As a cab-driving elder so eloquently observed, lots of 20-year-old millionaires. I walk to move the car to avoid being ticketed. I notice volunteer plants growing in the cracks of the sidewalk. They symbolize resistance, resilience, defiance, revolution. These dandelions and wild urban fennel plants tell me that this is the place for me. They give me hope. In my neighborhood, the median rent for a one-bedroom apartment right now is $4,000. There's barbed wire, so much barbed wire. The violent architecture there to be intentionally inaccessible or harmful, meant to deter people from sitting, resting, sleeping. Harmful by design, disrespectful and disregarding humanity. Homeless spikes are an example. The time, effort, and money that goes into these structures could be much better spent actually addressing the problem of homelessness. This is ableist bullshit. There's nowhere to sit for a disabled person or an elder or someone who is tired, which includes all of us. For someone who needs to rest, a safe place to sleep. The city is not very user-friendly. This is happening in my neighborhood, right out my front window. I see Google buses and families being evicted from their homes that often sit empty. I see grown men with Tech Boom logos on their chests kicking kids off soccer fields. I see daily examples of overt racism. I see less and less bus shelters and benches, trees on the streets and in parks being cut down, my favorite tree. I see knobs and spikes and big rocks on flat surfaces jutting out, put there intentionally to keep people from staying there. And suddenly half the public garbage cans are gone. I know this because I'm carrying some dog shit and I want to throw it away. I carry it for 2 hours. Public buses so crowded, so very crowded. Tech Boom buses whiz by. I took the BART for the first time when I first moved here to Fruitvale Station. I was going to help a new friend pack. I saw a poster for the movie Fruitvale. I took a picture of that poster. I Googled it. That was my introduction to the horrific killing of Oscar Grant while I was using the Fruitvale Station BART. I didn't watch the video footage of his murder at the hands of BART police officer Johannes Messerly on January 1st, 2009, until I watched the movie at home with Nomi a few months later. I will never see a police officer in the same way. People calling the police instead of getting to know their neighbors. I see SWAT teams of traffic cops coming onto buses and ticketing and arresting people for not paying bus fare. That shit scared me. It was a $106 ticket. I couldn't afford to pay it quick enough over 21 days, and it jumped up. I see this police presence on buses as an extension of the violent architecture. It's much like a stop and frisk law in that I've seen them, the bus cops, profile who they ask for their transfer. There were times I didn't pay that they passed me over. You've seen the selfies. I'm white. They were picking black and Latino folks, and 2 people who looked like that they might be carrying everything that they own. 2 of the people profiled were sleeping. When I got back home, I researched and found out that in 2011, a 19-year-old black kid named Kenneth Harding Jr. was shot and killed by SFPD for not paying the $2 bus fare. I see gentrification doing more than displacing people from their homes, a business model by the tech boomers. I see that it killed a 28-year-old man, Alex Nieto. Alex grew up in my neighborhood. He was raised in Bernal Heights and in the Mission District. On Friday, March 21st, 2014, Alex went up to Bernal Hill, which is a park, and the hill overlooks the city of San Francisco. Alex went up there as he often did to watch the sunset and to eat a burrito before his security guard shift. He was wearing a new 49ers jacket and had his taser on his hip, and he was minding his own business. Someone saw him and called the cops and said that he looked suspicious, that he was Latino, and that he had a gun. The caller later said it looked like this suspicious Latino Alex was eating chips or sunflower seeds. I'm professionally paid to be crazy, and I've eaten food atop Bernal Hill. No one called the cops on me. Police showed up and shot Alex, who did not have a gun, over 14 times, taking his young life. Their names still have not been released to the public. There's a pattern I'm seeing, and it happened with Idris Deli, murdered by SFPD, June 13, 2001, with Asa Sullivan, murdered by SFPD, June 6, 2006, with Alex Nieto, and more recently with O'Shane Evans, murdered by SFPD, October 7, 2014. How after police kill someone, they investigate the person they killed after the fact. They put out an official report or press release, and they, the police, paint the person that was killed as deserving to die and commend themselves, the police, for doing a good job. I hear police say that they feared for their life as a way to justify murder, to kill unarmed people. I never hear the police say the things that I feel compelled to say waiting in line to hug grieving parents. The first time I'm unrehearsed and I say to Alex Nieto's father, "My family loves you. I am so sorry for your loss." I'm at the town hall meeting, and it's shortly after Alex's death in March. I look into his eyes and I say, "Please let us know if there is anything we can do to support you." And I keep showing up, however I can. I keep doing the direct ask. In October, the Idris Deli Foundation posted that the wrongful death trial for Asa Sullivan was finally going to see its day in court, 8 years later. There was a call to the community to show up in support of Kat Espinosa, Asa's mom, who would be in town for the expected month-long trial. Nomi rearranged our schedules and went to many days of the trial. We became good friends with Kat. I heard the testimony of Officer Michelle Elvis with no remorse for killing unarmed Asa. I saw that these wrongful death trials in no way investigate the police who did the killing. Instead, it was Asa who was on trial. And to our surprise, the jury found that Asa wanted to die that day, that it was suicide by cop, and that his murder was justified. Experts on the use of force were paid thousands of dollars to testify to prove this. This violent infrastructure, this violent architecture. Just before the trial, my sweet dog friend, Kingston, was diagnosed with cancer. A 1-inch tumor was found in his throat. That month of the Asa Sullivan trial was his hardest month. And what I had hoped to be a couple of years surviving cancer with Kingston turned into a couple of weeks. People told me that I would know when it was time. And when it was, I certainly wasn't ready. October 11th was that day. Kingston was the best friend that I ever had. He kept me alive. He taught me how to love, to slow down, self-care. If he was alive right now, he'd be sitting right by my feet. He was my ADA companion animal, and he made my move to San Francisco possible. He was right there with me getting introduced to the city. I will continue to do the things that he taught me. Get to know my neighbors, love unconditionally, protect each other, love each other, keep showing up. 12 and a half years, my longest relationship. Did I mention that I love Nomi Lamb? Yes, I do. She's the most creative, inspiring, and loving person that I have ever met. She creates amazing art. We collaborate on many projects. I feel interdependence. Plus, my whole life I've been searching for someone to wear matching outfits with me. She totally does that. Do I think that I'll live in San Francisco forever? I don't. It's expensive here. But I'm not going anywhere. I mean, I live here, right now. I live here. This is my home. I have respect for my neighborhood. I'm investing in it. I live here. This is my home. My home. I've been listening to the stories of my neighbors. I've been finding ways to be helpful. I've been getting help, connecting and building community. People who have lived in the mission 15 years, 25 years, 80 years. People pushed out, an elder who chose to leave. Families still here and barely hanging on, some thriving. They say, "We aren't going anywhere," and they take my hand. People like Alex Nieto, the friend and neighbor I will never meet. He loved San Francisco. People who love San Francisco. Artists, activists, lawyers, a 9-year-old, elders. These are the people that give me hope and put my heart where my home is. Right here in San Francisco.